The small block Chevy is not dead, and I've done several videos explaining why you should do an LS swap over a small block Chevy swap, so it's time to do a video explaining, all right, let's back the train up. When does a small block Chevy actually make more sense than an LS swap? So let's get into it. To the Jumbotron of knowledge. So what we're doing here, the small block Chevy is not dead. We're going to be going through some of the places where it really shines. We have to be realistic about the horsepower. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Looking at dyno results. I'm not going to pull up any dyno results, but we've already been through them a million times. We're all familiar with them, so I don't think that's really necessary. So we need to acknowledge that, look, the LS3 is a modern masterpiece. It flows great. It's awesome packaging, very effective, gets good fuel mileage. It's a very strong choice if you're going to be doing anything above 450 horsepower, because if you're trying to take a small block Chevy over 450 horsepower, well, now the math isn't mathing anymore. Now it doesn't appear to be the better option. So where does a small block Chevy legitimately shine? So let's get the LS3 out of the way before we get into that. So a brand new 0 mileage, 430 horsepower LS3, you're looking at about $10,000. This is from GM themselves. Now you can get cheaper models, which is the same exact package, but from a different distributor, like Speedway Motors, for $9,600. So we'll say about $9,500 to $10,000 is typically where you can get a brand new 0 mileage LS3. Used between $7,000 and about $6,000, depending on the mileage, the shape it came in, all that good stuff. You're going to have 430 horsepower. So, the 383 stroker, that can comfortably hit about 450 horsepower. Yeah, you can go up to 500 horsepower, but 500 horsepower, now you're going to have to start really using good parts. It's not going to be quite as cheap as hitting 450 horsepower. But what I'm more focusing on is just like an upper end swap. Like you go to the junkyard, you find a donor engine, it's got relatively low mileage, less than 100,000 miles. Just cam, heads, intake, carburetor. Because when you start chasing that 500 horsepower or even 450 horsepower, the price adds up. Yes, these are crate engines, but they really articulate how close this is to an LS3 to get LS3 power. $9,000. This will get you just more than LS3 power. Yes, if I throw a camshaft in an LS3, I'll have more power than this, but that gets you there. This is a complete engine, quality built with quality parts. Now you can go a little bit cheaper parts. This one's $6,500. This doesn't have a carburetor or anything. This one right here is $8,000. Comes with the carburetor, everything. All these are 500 horse options. But, like I said, you're really creeping on LS3 pricing to get up to 500 horsepower. And here's basically how it breaks down. If you want a quality intake, quality heads, quality bottom end that's going to take the abuse you actually want to be doing at 500 horsepower, well, just for the top end, you're looking at $3,600. And for the bottom end, you're looking at $2,400. Yes, they do offer cheaper bottom ends. This is completely crap. Everything is cast. This is basically like what you would find in a small block Chevy for quality already. So can this actually handle 450, 500 horsepower? Probably not. 350, 400, okay. But this is a completely cast rotating assembly. You're still looking at like the cheap of the cheap of the cheap of the cheap, $1,000. And we don't even have the donor block yet. We don't have the carburetor. So yes, you can get 450, 500 horsepower out of a small block Chevy, but realistically speaking, that costs too much. Now, just getting up to like 400 horse, which is, in my opinion, the sweet spot. 350 to 400 horse for a small block Chevy, that is a good round number. It's easy to hit. You take your donor block, you put on a package like this, which is like $3,600. You get your donor block for like, what, $500 out of the junkyard. So you're at $4,000 and you'll have about 400 horsepower. It's going to run good. It's going to be fine. Yeah, you start beating on it and shit, you're going to blow out the bottom end. But just normal driving, 400 horsepower. Yeah, I get on it once in a while, but I'm not like constantly in the throttle. I can get there for $3,600 plus a donor block. Yeah, there is cheaper options. This is Edelbrock. They're more of a premium brand. So we could even knock it down to $3,000, right? This off-brand right here, I have no idea what brand this is. AFR or something like that. I think it was like $2,000. Unfortunately, my slide got in the way, so I can't really see it. The point is, like, 400 horsepower, yeah, 450 maybe, but 400 horsepower is really the sweet spot for small block Chevys. If you want to go above that, you know what, the math doesn't really math, and now you need to really start looking at an LS3. So, in this hypothetical video, we have decided we're going to stay at 400 horsepower. If we have to rebuild the bottom end just by throwing in new rings and new bearings, okay, whatever, we're going to use all the factory parts, or we're just going to do an upper end thing. So we're staying $4,000, 400 horsepower. This package wins because it has a rear distributor. So you can have a really clean front end. You don't have, like with an LS3, you got the fuel injection up front, so you got your air tubes and everything right in the front. So vehicles that don't have a whole lot of space up front, this is where your small block Chevy is going to come in. Very narrow valve covers. So going into a vehicle, you don't necessarily have to modify the booster in that, because the booster should be able to fit around a small block Chevy valve covers. Very simple mechanical layout. It just drops right into the chassis. You can hook up a fuel line off of a gas can and a power wire off of a battery, and that bad boy is going to run. You don't have to worry about wiring harnesses, ECUs, tuning, everything you can do with a vacuum gauge and a screwdriver for tuning it. Very, very simple mechanical. So if you're building an older vehicle and you're not trying to do a resto mod, like you're trying to keep that older vehicle look, this is a great option. It slides right in there. Like I said, affordable 400 horsepower, easy to go in. It's also going to bolt up to all your old school transmissions. So your turbo 350s, your turbo 400s, which are solid trannies with only 400 horsepower. Yeah, you start throwing real horsepower at those trannies and they don't do so hot anymore. But small block Chevy realistic horsepower, like 400 horsepower, yeah, they'll do okay. And then it's got that deep, throaty, like muscle car sound. Just it looks cool. I mean, you pop the hood and you see a small block Chevy, and you're like, that's cool. And like I was saying, look at the front end here. All nice and clean. Where does this come in if you're trying to do like an S10 swap? You just don't have all that. Yes, you can fit an LS and an S10. There's videos that show you how to do it. But doing your first swap at home, in your garage, doing a small block Chevy is infinitely easier, just because the technology isn't there. You don't need to run the wiring harness. You don't need to have the ECU. You don't have to figure out how to plumb in a fuel injection inlet hose right there. Yeah, you know what? An LS could make more horsepower, but this is a whole lot easier. This gets your feet wet. So beginner swappers, like 18 to 29-year-olds, people that are just getting into swapping and hot rodding, starting off with a small block Chevy, that's a great way to get your feet wet. So you're not just totally being overwhelmed. Like I said, it's something you can do in your garage with some jack stands, maybe some ramps, swap a small block Chevy into an S10, hook up a power wire, run a fuel line, and you're good to go. Small block Chevys have that instant low-end torque right off of idle. You don't need to get into the high RPMs to really experience the power in it, because it all comes at low RPMs. Nice crisp exhaust sound, like I was saying, because of the firing order and the head design. The LS just can't replicate that sound. The swap is just so much easier, because again, you're just running a fuel line and you're running a power wire. Budget-friendly torque monster. $4,000, you have 400 horsepower. Simple. Nice and simple to go. If you want to get into an LS, just getting the base engine in there. We haven't bought the ECU yet. We haven't bought the wiring harness. The base engine, if I want to go brand new, 10 grand. If I want to go used with questionable miles on it, $6,000. So, okay, $6,000. Now we got, what, another $1,000 on the ECU. Probably about another $1,000 on the wiring harness, so six. We're at 8 grand, where I could have went $4,000 and maybe like another $1,000 for like the carburetor, plugs, wires, all that stuff. Call it 5 grand. It's significantly cheaper to go with a small block Chevy. And again, significantly easier, mechanically straightforward. I don't have to worry about all the electronics in that. So it does really shine at that. Again, if you want to do it though, you have to be realistic about your ownership. You're not shooting for 450, 500 horsepower. You need to be shooting for like 400, maybe 350 horsepower, and that's where you'll be able to do it cost affordable. You want to get up to 450, 500 horsepower, you're better off going with an LS. Strong street reliability if you're good at the cooling. more smiles per mile with an LS, but if you stay under that 400 horsepower, now you're not breaking stuff, the engine's not eating itself, it's going to be a funner project. Again, you got to be realistic about the horsepower. You can't look at a small block Chevy and be like, oh, I want to swap this in, I want to have 500 horsepower, I want to do it for $5,000, and I want it to run 100,000 miles. That just isn't going to happen. It's fun, it's torquey, and it's great, it hits high RPMs, well, relatively high RPMs. I wouldn't call it high RPMs. If you take a bottom end up to like 6 grand constantly, it's going to eat itself up. But 5,500, it sounds like you're just screaming in a small block Chevy. Like the carburetors open up. I don't know if you've ever, of course you've driven a car, but you're watching this channel. The sound the four barrels make when they open up, it is just a beautiful sound. And that carburetor sound, that you just don't get that stuff out of an LS. An LS runs like a clock. This is more like the Hulk running through town. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching my video. No, the small block Chevy is not dead. Yes, the LS takes care of most applications, but there is still a window where your small block Chevy is definitely going to fit into. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching the video. If you'd like to help support the channel, click on the Amazon affiliate link. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it. Doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kick back for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.